Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Watchlist. Basically, think of this as a monthly TV guide for me to let you know what and when TV shows that I'm interested in, that maybe you're interested in, are coming. Like always, in the description down below, I'll include any links to any trailers that might be available about anything that I bring up during this watch list. On September 6th on DC Universe, we have Season 2 of Titans, which I'm very excited about. Obviously, we got a little bit of a teaser. Who knows, by the time this video actually goes up, there might actually be a full trailer out. But we got a lot of little quick cuts about what we'd see in Season 2, including introduction of a new villain this season, that being Deathstroke, which is neat. You know, just as someone who's a big fan of the original Teen Titans cartoon from Cartoon Network, it's kind of neat to kind of see that come over this way. But I guess he's just generally, and it's always been my speculation, I guess he's generally one of the go-to Titans villains, you know. So, but obviously and I brought it up when I talked about the trailer, there's a lot of stuff. Season 1 ended off on a big cliffhanger, wait, where are we going with this type of thing? Obviously, if you haven't seen Season 1, I don't want to spoil it, but it's Season 2, the first look we got didn't show any answers to that. So that's why I'm kind of getting the feeling like that might be answered pretty quickly at the beginning of Season 2, and then we just kind of go on our merry way. But obviously, we get I didn't realize who he was at the time, but afterwards, one of the new people in the trailer is Aqualad. We're also getting Superboy this season. It seems like the Titans crew is growing. Even the person that apparently Dick Grayson is talking to at the beginning of the first look, apparently that was Bruce, which we're kind of introducing Batman. Probably he's not going to be the biggest focus, but I think he's just going to be there established in that universe, which is kind of pretty neat. So I'd love to because it seems like this season we might get even more backstory into, you know, the Titans before the new Titans, as you know, Rachel kind of puts it, or what do we Titans 2.0 or Next Generation or whatever, you know. So I'm curious to see, you know, I really enjoyed Season 1. If you've not seen Season 1, I highly recommend you check it out. It's really worth your time. A lot of interesting things, and I'm very interested to see where this season ends up taking us. On September 13th on Amazon Prime Video, we have this new series called Undone. It's this animated series, and it's very distinct animated style, where it's kind of like this, I don't know it's kind of like Scanner Darkly. And I was trying to remember what have I seen that kind of reminds me of it, and it's kind of got that Scanner Darkly animation to it. A lot of familiar actors and stuff like that. It looks like the characters obviously look like the respective actors that are portraying them, but obviously, basically, it seems like the story is that this girl was in an accident, and basically, woman who was in an accident, and she wakes up and basically she's seeing her dead father, and he's teaching her how to control time. Weird premise, because at first I'm like, wait, what's going on? Because she wakes up, things don't seem right, the world starts to getting all weird, and it's what's going on? And it's because it's trippy, and all I can say about it, it's mind-bending stuff, but it seems like an interesting premise that why is it that her dead dad is teaching her how to time travel? Has she always had this power and it just took now to unlock it? Or is there a specific reason why she has it? Will they even dive into that at all? Is it even worth it? But obviously it's all about changing her life, because she wants to go back and make sure that hey, maybe my dad didn't die. Because for her, it's she's led a boring life, because she does the same thing, wakes up the same day, you know, takes the same route to work and stuff like that. So obviously this throws a big wrench into her life, and so I think it might be one of those things where it's you're kind of stuck in a rut, and it takes something extraordinary to kind of put you. It takes one kind of bad thing to kind of bring a silver lining to your life and put you on a new path and a new direction. I think that might be something we kind of deal with. Either way, it seems very fascinating. On September 20th on Netflix, we have Season 2, or even rather, I think it's considered Part 2 of Disenchantment, which if you haven't seen Disenchantment, it's made by the same creator of Futurama and The Simpsons. I brought it up before, whereas The Simpsons is present day and the Futurama is the future, Disenchantment is the past. It literally takes place in medieval times, but basically it's just fun fantasy comedy that follows a princess named Bean. She kicks it with an elf named Elfo and this demon named Lucy, and they get into shenanigans and stuff like that. What I've talked about before is the fact is that I find interesting, because it seems like this has a main overarching plot. Now, don't get me wrong, the others, in particular, Futurama has overarching plot elements as well, but it's very episodical. In this, it seems like there's definitely a plot that's overarching, which I think is kind of interesting thing, that it does have a story to tell. Even you know, without going into spoilers, Season 1 had a huge plot point to be whoa, wait, what? cliffhanger, which you wouldn't kind of expect the show to kind of end off on a cliffhanger like that. But I'm very interested to see where Bean's story picks up at the beginning of season 2 and like what that means for like the kingdom and all that, and just what ends up happening going forward, because obviously it's not just what's going on with Bean, because there's even a larger plot too of, you know, people keeping an eye on them. They've got their own plans while other people's plans are at play. There's a whole thing. On September 24th on Fox, we have a new series called The Prodigal Son. It's this crime drama that follows like this dude. Interesting enough, is the actor who played Jesus in The Walking Dead. Basically, his dad is kind of locked up. His dad's like a well-known serial killer, but his dad helps him kind of figure out, you know, how to tackle and take down other serial killers. And it just seems like an interesting premise. You know, because now it's like he's back in his father's life, and his father's been out of his life for a long time, but it's like his dad, it seems like all of this is for the purpose of his dad to get him back into his life, and it's like his dad's drawing him in, but for what reasons, he doesn't really know yet. It's kind of interesting, because like if I couldn't compare it to anything, it feels like it might kind of have a bit of a Hannibal vibe to it, which I never finished Hannibal. I need to go back, like, because I got to like near the end of season 2, because there was like total of 3 seasons. It's a really good show. I just need to circle back to it. But nevertheless, I'm very interested to kind of dive into this show. Like I said, it seems like maybe kind of like a psychological crime drama, so that'd be pretty neat. On September 24th on ABC, we have a new show called Emergence. Essentially, I think she's the main character. She's the sheriff in this town or whatever, but basically I think a plane crashes and there was like either no one aboard or like no survivors. I think it was like no survivors except for a little girl who, she's not hurt at all, so it's like, okay, how did she survive the plane crash without a scratch? But it doesn't seem like she's just normal, because it seems like she has powers too, and it seems like there's people after her, so it's up to this sheriff to kind of like protect her, and like there's like a lot of mystery. It seems like a very like science fictional show, so it's like, is she like an alien or something? Is she an experiment? Does she just naturally have these powers? Like, it seems, like I said, there's a mystery element to figuring out like what this is all about, who wants her and why, you know. I'm very interested to kind of dive into it. And on September 25th, also on ABC, we have another new series called Stumptown, which I didn't know this when I originally saw stuff about it, but this show is actually based on a graphic novel of the same name, graphic novel / comic book. So essentially, the main protagonist, played by Kobe Smulders, which is pretty badass, it's basically this PI, but she's kind of like, how would you, it's hard to kind of describe her. She's not the most, I guess, she kind of goes about things her own way. She's kind of sloppy in just the way she kind of handles things. It's kind of like, I get the job done, I get the job done. And so now it's a situation of like her like stopping bad people while also having an interesting relationship with the police and one cop in particular. Or was he like, yeah, because I was about to say, is he a cop? It's like, yeah, played by Michael Ealy, which is pretty dope. It seems like a show where we're going to get a little bit of kind of like action, some crime solving, and some comedy. So it's nice to kind of get that all blended together. But just from what we saw in the trailer, it seems really fascinating. So I'm really interested to see what the show ends up all being about. Next up on September 26th, we've actually got a few things. First up on CBS, we have this new comedy called The Unicorn, which stars Walton Goggins, which is interesting because I normally don't see him in the comedies. I guess an exception to that would be like Ant-Man and the Wasp, which is a, you know, comedy, but like action comedy. But regardless, like mostly I've seen him, he's in dramas. Like for example, I didn't know this, but he was in The Shield back in the day. I only know that because like my mom like binged on it like a couple months ago. But also like the thing I kind of best know him for the first thing I ever got to see him in was Justified, which I need to circle back to that show. But nevertheless, it's interesting. Basically, he plays this widower who, you know, he lost his wife, but now like his kids as well as his friends are trying to get him back out there, trying to get him dating again, and basically, you know, shenanigans ensue. So if you're looking for like a comedy, it seems like kind of like a comedy, romantic comedy, kind of like, you know, a light-hearted, you know, comedy in regard. Like I said, it seems very interesting, and just it seems like a lot of fun just from what I saw from the trailers. So. Next up, also on September 26th, we have the 4th and final season of The Good Place, which I'm very excited to see how this whole thing plays out. If you've never seen The Good Place, you need to change that. It's a very good, not only is it a good and funny show, it gets you kind of thinking. Like, there's a lot of interesting world building involved in this show, and just like a lot of like, not necessarily, I feel weird saying this, but kind of like high concepts. And I'm kind of like, oh, that's interesting, that the perspective that they kind of give you on certain things. It's kind of interesting when you break the show down season by season. It's almost like each season is a soft reboot, but it's not like a complete and utter reboot. Like, they do kind of like, they play into the soft reboot, and we kind of went there in season 3's finale. Don't want to give any spoilers away, which is like, oh, I'm giving away spoilers for a comedy. I know I'm kind of down that lane again, but it's such a good show that I want people to just kind of enjoy it. But last season brought us some very interesting developments. Some new challenges await our crew. I was about to say our humans, but that's not 100% true when you include Michael and Janet. But I'm so curious to see, like, especially like a lot of relationships got developed last season, you know, or rebuilt up again, depending on how you want to look at everything. But I'm so curious to see how this all plays out, what the final, where this all leads us to when it comes to like a series finale and stuff like that. Because I think Kristen Bell has talked about it before, but you know, kind of being like, oh, it's you know, it's going to be a very satisfactory ending. So I'm very excited to see how like this show ends up playing out. And also on September 26th, also on CBS, we have the series premiere of Evil. Basically, this woman, I think she's a psychiatrist. Basically, she's working with a priest. It's almost kind of like this Exorcist level type of show almost. Basically, it's like, oh, maybe there's like a real evil in this world, that people are possessed and stuff like that. And this, you know, priest, played by Mike Coulter, Luke Cage, interestingly enough, they work together to find out whether certain cases, like a backlog of cases of like, oh, was this like just human evil in its purest, or was there something more malicious and demonic? So it's kind of an interesting, kind of like a supernatural show, kind of balancing between of like, okay, is there a rational explanation for this, which I guess you can almost look at as almost kind of like, with that premise is kind of like almost like X-Files meets Exorcist, kind of, to a certain extent. So it just seems like an interesting premise for the show. Just from the trailer, it seems like you might get something a little, you know, a little dark and spooky. So I'm very interested to kind of see, you know, what the show's all about. And finally, on September 27th on Sci-Fi, we had the 4th season of Van Helsing. I am very excited to see what they ultimately end up doing this season. A lot of crazy stuff went down in season 3. There were some like major developments, like the main cast just kind of scattered everywhere. Everyone's kind of off doing their own things. It's just like, okay, so what about that group and this group and that group? Everything that's going on with Vanessa, like obviously she went through some developments in season 3. Obviously some pretty big plot stuff went down. Scarlet storyline, like the way that was set up is kind of like, that's kind of where it is right now, is kind of where it is, and there ain't no changing that, which I'm kind of like, what? That just because it almost seemed like it came out of nowhere. But then there was also the final thing in the episode, in the season 3 finale, where it's just like, oh, basically, without spoiling it, Vanessa's with another character, and I'm like, wait, so is that going to be the new dynamic going forward into season 4? Like the little bit I saw in a trailer, it seemed like we're getting even more new characters kicking it around. Very excited to see, because it seems like obviously we're going to do more world building, obviously diving deeper into this whole, continuing to dive deeper into this whole Van Helsing bloodline situation, and you know, where Vanessa stands at the end of all this. I'm very excited to see what craziness that ensues in season 4. And that brings this month's watch list to an end. Like always, if there's something that's coming out that I'm not aware of that you think maybe me or someone else might be interested in, don't be afraid to leave it in the comments down below. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, light to the force, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.